Blood in the rain fell in sheets across Station Helix's industrial sector, turning the cracked pavement into a river of oil-slick darkness. Marcus Webb kept his head down, collar turned up against the perpetual storm that seemed to match his mood. 5 years since the courts-martial, 5 years since his name became synonymous with the Centauri disaster. And still the nightmares woke him screaming. He'd been heading back to his closet-sized apartment after another pointless security shift when he heard the scream. Most people on Helix knew better than to investigate strange sounds in the lower districts. Marcus had learned that lesson too, paid for it in scars, both visible and hidden. But something about this particular cry-high terrified. Young bypassed every survival instinct he'd cultivated. The alley was darker than the street, if that was possible. Marcus's hand found the plasma cutter he carried. Not quite legal but necessary on a station where law enforcement was more suggestion than reality. His eyes adjusted slowly, picking out shapes in the gloom. 4 figures surrounded something small. Marcus recognized the distinctive ridged skulls and thick carapaces of Vorton enforcers. Bad news on the best days. These weren't small-time thugs. They wore the red sigils of the cartel itself. "Please," a voice whispered, and Marcus saw her then. A child, couldn't be more than 7 or 8 in human years, though with aliens, it was hard to tell. Her skin shimmered like crushed diamonds even in the darkness, and her eyes bright amber. Wide with terror locked onto his as he stepped into the alley. "Back away from her," Marcus said, his voice carrying the command tone that had once led 50 soldiers into hell and back. Now, the Vortons turned, and Marcus saw recognition flicker across their brutal faces. They knew what he was: human, former military, dangerous despite being alone and outnumbered. But they also saw his worn clothes, the exhaustion in his stance, the way his hand trembled slightly on the cutter. "Walk away, human," the lead enforcer growled, his translator rendering the clicking language into crude English. "The sparkling belongs to Dravik Cross now. Debt payment." Marcus's jaw tightened. He knew that name. Everyone on Helix knew Dravik Cross, the Vorton cartel's chief enforcer, a creature with a reputation for creative brutality. And he knew what debt payment meant in the cartel's economy. This child would disappear into the flesh trade. One more victim in a station full of them. He should walk away. Should let the galaxy's darkness swallow one more innocent while he preserved his own miserable existence. Should remember that heroes died young and forgotten. "I said back away," Marcus repeated, stepping forward. Everything happened fast. The first Vorton lunged, razor-sharp claws extended. Marcus sidestepped. Years of combat training overriding conscious thought, and drove the plasma cutter into the soft tissue beneath the creature's carapace. Superheated energy burned through alien flesh, and the Vorton scream was cut short as it collapsed. The other 3 attacked together. Marcus fought with desperate efficiency, but these weren't street thugs. They were trained killers. He took down the second with a strike to its primary nerve cluster, but the third got behind him. Pain exploded across his back as claws raked through his jacket and the flesh beneath. Marcus roared, spinning, using the momentum to drive his elbow into the creature's throat. It staggered back, but the 4th enforcer had drawn a serrated blade. Marcus saw it coming, tried to dodge, but his boots slipped on the wet pavement. The blade caught him in the side, just below the ribs, and the world went white with agony. He grabbed the Vorton's wrist, keeping the blade from twisting, and smashed his forehead into the creature's face, once, twice, until he felt the ridged skull crack. The Vorton dropped, and Marcus fell with it, blood pouring from multiple wounds. The remaining enforcer circled cautiously. Marcus tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't cooperate. He'd lost too much blood, taken too much damage. This was at death, in a filthy alley, on a nowhere station. At least he'd die doing something decent for once. The child suddenly darted forward, placing herself between Marcus and the Vorton. Her small hands glowed with an inner light that seemed impossible, and when she pressed them against Marcus's wounds, cool energy flooded through him. Not healing, but enough to keep him conscious. "Leave him alone," she shouted, her voice carrying surprising authority. The Vorton hesitated, then turned and ran. Marcus didn't understand why until he saw the pendant around the child's neck. A crystal star that marked her as sovereignty royalty. The enforcer had finally recognized what he'd tried to kidnap. "Thank you," the girl whispered, tears streaming down her shimmering cheeks. "Thank you for being brave." Marcus tried to respond, but the world was tilting. He felt the girl's small hands on his face, heard her crying for help, and then consciousness slipped away like water through his fingers. He woke in his own bed, which made no sense. The last thing he remembered was the alley, the blood, the impossible glow from the child's hands. Now he was clean, bandaged with medical tech he couldn't possibly afford, very much not dead. Marcus sat up slowly, cataloging his injuries. Someone had used sovereignty healing patches, the kind that cost more than he made in a year. Someone had also brought him home, undressed him, tended his wounds with professional care. The door chimed. Marcus reached for his plasma cutter, found it on the nightstand within easy reach. Whoever had helped him wasn't trying to leave him defenseless. That was something. The security screen showed 8 figures outside. 6 wore the ceremonial armor of sovereignty royal guards, sleek, efficient, and undoubtedly lethal. Between them stood the child from the alley, cleaned up and wearing elegant robes, and a woman who made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. She was tall for her species, with the same crystalline shimmer to her skin but in deeper tones, sapphire and amethyst swirling beneath the surface. Her hair fell in waves of midnight blue, her eyes ... Those amber eyes held depths of intelligence and something else Marcus couldn't quite name. She wore formal diplomatic attire that somehow managed to be both elegant and subtly sensual, the fabric flowing over curves that would make any human woman envious. Marcus looked down at himself, shirtless, bandaged, definitely not dressed for receiving alien royalty. He grabbed a shirt, winced as his wounds protested, and opened the door. "Marcus Webb," the woman said. Her voice like music played through crystal. "Former captain of the Terran Expeditionary Force, court-martialed after Centauri, presumed dead by Earth's authorities." She smiled, and Marcus felt something in his chest tighten. "My daughter tells me you saved her life. I am Ambassador Navina Solmar, and I believe we need to talk." Sanctuary and seduction. Marcus stepped aside, letting Ambassador Solmar and her daughter enter while the guards remained in the corridor. The contrast between his sparse apartment and the elegant woman, now examining it with curious eyes, couldn't have been more stark. "You've researched me," Marcus said, closing the door. "I'm flattered and disturbed." Navina turned, and up close, she was even more stunning. The crystalline patterns in her skin caught the dim light, creating subtle rainbows across her features. "Knowledge is currency in diplomatic circles, Captain Webb. Or do you prefer Marcus now?" "I prefer to be left alone." "Fortunately, that's no longer an option."
Yes.
Navina gestured to her daughter, who stood watching Marcus with open adoration. "You've met Princess Sienna Solmar, heir to the crystalline sovereignty throne. By saving her, you've created ... complications." Marcus felt his blood run cold. "I didn't know who she was." "Which makes your actions even more remarkable," Navina said softly. "Most humans would have walked past. Most of any species would have." She moved closer, and Marcus caught her scent like ozone after rain, electric and alive. The Vorton cartel doesn't forgive such interference. "By morning, Dravik Cross will have placed a bounty on your head that would tempt saints." "I've dealt with worse. Have you?" Navina's amber eyes held his. "The Centauri massacre left you with nightmares, survivor's guilt, and a death wish barely hidden beneath functional depression. Don't think I haven't read the psychological profiles." Marcus's jaw tightened. "You have no right." "I have every right," Navina interrupted, her voice still gentle but carrying steel beneath. "Because I'm about to offer you something impossible. Redemption, purpose, and survival. I want you as Sienna's personal bodyguard. No, you're a tactical genius who once led impossible missions against overwhelming odds. You're a man who instinctively protects the innocent despite personal cost. And you're someone my daughter trusts." Navina glanced at Sienna, who had curled up on Marcus's worn couch. She has good instincts about people. Better than mine sometimes. Marcus looked at the small princess, remembering how she'd placed herself between him and danger. How her small hands had glowed with protective energy. She's brave. She's reckless, Navina corrected, but her tone was affectionate, like her mother. She stepped closer still, and Marcus found himself backed against the wall. Come to the embassy. Let me offer you sanctuary while you consider my proposition. And if I refuse, then I'll have my guards escort you to our medical facility. Because those wounds haven't fully healed despite the patches, and you'll die of infection within days. Navina's hand rose, hovering near Marcus's bandaged side. May I? Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. Navina's fingers brushed against the medical patch, and even through the barrier, he felt electricity at her touch. She was checking the wound professionally, but her eyes held something far from clinical. You heal quickly for a human, she murmured. Strong constitution, stubborn genetics, Navina laughed, a sound like bells. I've studied your species extensively. Stubbornness seems to be a defining characteristic. Her hand lingered a moment too long before she stepped back. Come with us, Marcus. Let me protect you the way you protected my daughter. Something in her voice, in her eyes, made Marcus nod. Just until I figure out my next move. Of course, Navina said. But her smile suggested she expected his next move would be staying. They left through the service corridors, Marcus leading despite his injuries. The sovereignty guards followed his tactical suggestions without question, which surprised him until Commander Therona. Stern male with patterns of silver in his crystalline skin explained that Navina had ordered them to defer to Marcus's expertise. The ambassador believes human unpredictability will serve us well, Theron said. Not quite hiding his skepticism, they were 3 blocks from the embassy when Marcus's instincts screamed warning. He threw out his arms, stopping the group as plasma fire erupted from the rooftops ahead. Ambush. Marcus shouted, diving to cover with Sienna. Return fire lit up the night as the guards engaged attackers Marcus now recognized as Vorton shock troops, not cartel thugs, but military-grade killers. They knew our route, Theron snarled. Inside information, Marcus agreed, his mind racing through tactical options. We need alternate passage. There's a maintenance duct 3 meters ahead, leads directly into embassy sublevels. How do you encase every government building on this station when I arrived? Marcus cut him off. Old habits, move. He grabbed Sienna, shielding her with his body as plasma bolts seared the air. Navina stayed close, and Marcus was startled to see her holding a compact pulse weapon with obvious familiarity. Not just a diplomat, then. They reached the duct access. Marcus pried it open while the guards provided covering fire. Go, he ordered Sienna, practically pushing her through. Navina went next, then the guards. Marcus prepared to follow when pain exploded in his shoulder. He'd been hit. He stumbled, and strong hands caught him Navina, who had climbed back up. Don't you dare die on me, she hissed. Dragging him into the duct with surprising strength, they half fell. Half slid down the maintenance shaft, landing in a heap in the sublevel corridor. Marcus groaned, his shoulder bleeding through the bandages. Navina was on top of him, her face inches from his, both breathing hard. For a long moment, neither moved. Marcus became acutely aware of every point where their bodies touched, of the way Navina's eyes had darkened to deep amber, of how her lips were parted slightly as she caught her breath. You came back for me, Marcus said quietly. Don't sound so surprised, Navina whispered. You saved my daughter. You think I'd let you bleed out in a maintenance shaft? Her hand cupped his face. Besides, I haven't finished convincing you to stay. Then she kissed him. It was brief, barely more than a brush of lips, but it sent shockwaves through Marcus's entire body. When Navina pulled back, her expression was as surprised as he felt. That was ... double quotes, she started. Inappropriate, Marcus suggested. Inevitable, Navina corrected. She stood, offering her hand. Come, we need to get you to medical before you bleed out and make a liar of me. Marcus took her hand, letting her help him up, and tried to ignore how right it felt when she didn't immediately let go. Diplomatic desires, Marcus spent 3 days in the embassy medical facility, where sovereignty healers worked miracles on his wounds. By the 4th day, he was cleared for light duty, which Navina immediately interpreted as ready for diplomatic functions. "You can't be serious," Marcus said, looking at the formal attire laid out on his bed. The embassy had provided him quarters that were more luxurious than anywhere he'd lived in a decade. "Completely serious," Navina replied from his doorway. She wore a gown that made Marcus's mouth go dry deep, blue fabric that shimmered like her skin, cut to showcase her elegant shoulders and the curve of her waist. Her hair was styled in an intricate arrangement that probably took hours. Tonight's gala includes representatives from 15 species, including several Vorten diplomats. "Your presence sends a message that I'm your pet human," Navina's eyes flashed, "that I don't cower before cartel intimidation." She entered the room, circling him like a predator. "Also, Sienna insists you attend. She's been practicing her formal dance, just to show you." Marcus softened. "She doesn't need to impress me." "Neither do I," Navina said, stopping in front of him. "Yet here I am wearing a dress that took 3 attendants to secure, hoping you'll notice." She said it lightly, but her eyes held real vulnerability. "I noticed," Marcus admitted. "You're stunning." Color rippled across Navina's crystalline skin, a blush, he realized. "Get dressed, Captain. We have appearances to maintain." The gala was held in the embassy's grand ballroom, a space that seemed designed to showcase the sovereignty's wealth and power. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow light across hundreds of guests from across known space. Marcus felt completely out of place in his formal attire, even though Navina's staff had tailored it perfectly to his frame. "Relax," Navina murmured at his side. "You've infiltrated enemy compounds. This is just a conversation with better lighting." Enemy compounds had clearer objectives. Navina laughed, the sound drawing attention from nearby guests. "Objective 1. Don't let Ambassador Quilax from the Vorten delegation provoke you. He'll try. Objective 2. Dance with me at least once. Objective 3. Try to enjoy yourself. That last one might be impossible. Then I'll have to work harder to make it happen." Throughout the evening, Marcus watched Navina work the room with practiced grace. She was a master diplomat, navigating complex political waters while making each person she spoke to feel important. But her eyes kept finding Marcus, and every time they did, he felt that same electric connection from the maintenance shaft. Sienna appeared at his side wearing a smaller version of her mother's elegant gown. "Do you like it here, Marcus?" "It's overwhelming," he admitted. "Mother says you're used to simpler things." Sienna took his hand with complete trust. "But you fit here. You fit with us?" Before Marcus could respond, Ambassador Quilax approached a massive Vorten with scars crisscrossing his carapace and eyes that held nothing but malice. "The human who killed 4 cartel enforcers?" Quilax rumbled. "Dravik Cross sends his regards." Marcus positioned himself slightly in front of Sienna. "Tell Dravik I'll be happy to discuss the matter in person." Brave words from a dead man. Quilax leaned closer. "Enjoy the ambassador's protection while it lasts. The sovereignty tires of you will be waiting." "Ambassador Quilax," Navina's voice cut through the tension like a blade. She appeared beside Marcus, radiating cold authority. "I believe you're violating several protocols by threatening a guest at a diplomatic function." Quilax straightened, attempting diplomacy. "Merely conveying information, Ambassador Solmar? Convey yourself to the opposite end of the room before I have you removed." The Vorten left, and Navina's icy demeanor melted as she turned to Marcus. "Are you all right? I've heard worse threats." "That doesn't answer my question." Marcus met her eyes, seeing genuine concern there. "I'm fine, though your diplomatic immunity is looking more appealing." Navina smiled. "Then you're staying?" "I'm considering it." Music swelled through the ballroom, and Navina extended her hand. "Dance with me while you consider." Marcus let her lead him to the dance floor, acutely aware of every eye watching them. Navina moved into his arms with natural grace, one hand on his shoulder, the other clasped in his. "I don't know sovereignty dances," Marcus admitted. "Then follow my lead." Navina guided him through the steps, their bodies moving in sync. "You're a quick study. I'm motivated." The words escaped before Marcus could stop them. Navina's eyes darkened. "By what? You know by what?" They moved closer, propriety forgotten. Marcus became aware of the warmth of her body, the way her hand tightened on his shoulder, how her breath caught slightly when his fingers spread across her lower back. "Marcus," Navina whispered, "this is complicated. Most worthwhile things are. My people don't approve of cross-species relationships. The High Council would. Is that what this is?" Marcus interrupted. Navina's expression turned fierce. "What we did in the maintenance shaft? What I feel every time I look at you, yes, Marcus. That's exactly what this is. Whether either of us planned it or not, the music ended, but neither moved." They stood in the center of the ballroom, the rest of the universe fading away, until Sienna's excited voice broke the spell. "Mother, Marcus, come see the garden lights." They followed Sienna outside. The embassy gardens were illuminated by thousands of bioluminescent plants native to the sovereignty homeworld. Other guests had already dispersed, giving them relative privacy. Marcus felt Navina tense beside him. He followed her gaze and saw shadows moving wrong among the lights professional, coordinated. Assassins. He shoved Navina and Sienna behind a decorative pillar as plasma fire erupted. Security guards rushed to intercept, but Marcus saw 3 attackers breaking through toward their position. Training took over. Marcus grabbed a guard's fallen weapon and returned fire, dropping the first attacker. The second got close enough for hand-to-hand combat. Marcus fought with brutal efficiency, years of accumulated rage and survival instinct channeled into violence. When it was over, 3 assassins lay dead, and Marcus had reopened half his wounds. Navina emerged from cover, her diplomatic composure shattered. She threw her arms around him, shaking. "You could have been killed," she said against his chest. "So could you." Marcus held her tightly, not caring who saw.
Tired.
"I'm tired of watching people I care about die." Navina pulled back just enough to look at him. "You care about me? That obvious?" She kissed him then, deeply and without hesitation. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Navina rested her forehead against his. "Come to my chambers," she whispered. "Let me tend your wounds properly this time. Let me be with you, consequences be damned." Marcus looked into her amber eyes and saw his own desire reflected there. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." Navina took his hand. "Sienna's with her guards. We have tonight. I want to spend it with you." Marcus let her lead him inside, knowing they were crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed, and not caring about anything except the woman whose hand fit perfectly in his. The cartel strikes back. Marcus woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows, and Navina's body curved against his. The previous night flooded back in waves their desperate journey to her chambers. The way she'd carefully cleaned his wounds before they'd given in to the desire building between them. The discovery that passion transcended species when the connection was deep enough. Navina stirred, her eyes opening to meet his. The crystalline patterns in her skin caught the morning light, creating tiny rainbows across her bare shoulders. "No regrets?" she asked softly. Marcus traced one of the patterns with his finger, marveling at the warmth beneath. "None. You." "I've never felt more certain about a choice." Navina kissed him gently. "Though we've made things infinitely more complicated. When have I ever done things the simple way?" They were interrupted by urgent pounding on the door. Commander Theron's voice came through, tight with panic. "Ambassador, Princess Sienna is missing." Navina was out of bed in seconds, pulling on a robe. Marcus dressed quickly, his tactical mind already running scenarios. When Navina opened the door, Theron stood there with 3 guards, all looking shaken, explained Navina ordered. Every inch the commanding diplomat, despite having been in Marcus's arms moments ago. "The princess went for her morning walk in the secure gardens at dawn," Theron reported. "Guards accompanied her, but they were hit with neural disruptors. When they woke, she was gone. We found this." He handed over a small device. When Navina activated it, a hologram appeared. Dravik, Cross himself, the infamous Vortin enforcer. His scarred face held cruel satisfaction. "Ambassador Solmer," the image said, "your human pet cost me valuable property, and for good soldiers. Consider this ... equitable exchange. Bring Captain Webb to the old freight docks at sundown, alone, or the princess learns exactly what the cartel does to debt payments." The hologram flickered out. Navina's hand shook as she lowered the device, her composure finally cracking. "They took my baby," Markaus caught her hands, "and we're going to get her back." "You can't go," Theron protested. "It's obviously a trap." "Of course it's a trap," Marcus agreed. "But Dravik doesn't know I've spent 5 years studying every cartel operation on this station. He doesn't know about the secondary access points to those docks, or the maintenance tunnels running beneath them. And he definitely doesn't expect me to bring company." Navina's eyes hardened, grief transforming into cold determination. "You're not going alone, Ambassador." "That's not," Theron started. "Not negotiable." Navina cut him off. "Sienna is my daughter. I'm coming." She turned to Marcus. "Tell me you have a plan. The beginning of one." Marcus moved to the wall display, pulling up station schematics from memory. The freight docks have 3 main entrances, all of which Dravik will have covered, but here he indicated a section. There's a ventilation system that hasn't been updated since the station's construction. It connects to the maintenance network. "We can't fit a full strike team through ventilation shafts," Theron pointed out. "No, but 3 people can." Marcus looked at Navina. "You, me, and 1 guard. We go in quiet, locate Sienna, and extract her while Theron brings the rest of the team through the main entrance as a distraction." "That's insane," Theron said. "That's tactical advantage," Marcus corrected. "They're expecting the obvious. We give them obvious while doing something else entirely." Navina studied the schematics, her tactical mind, the one she kept hidden beneath diplomatic grace engaging. "It could work. If the timing is perfect, when has anything we've done had perfect timing?" Marcus asked. "We make it work." They spent the day preparing. Marcus requisitioned weapons from the embassy arsenal, impressed by the sovereignty's military tech. Navina changed into tactical gear that somehow managed to be both functional and form-fitting, earning appreciative looks from Marcus that made her smile despite everything. "Focus, Captain," she teased. "I am focused. On multiple things." As sunset approached, Marcus, Navina, and a guard named Sirith entered the maintenance network. The tunnels were cramped, hot, and exactly as Marcus remembered from his reconnaissance years ago. "How much further?" Sirith whispered. 200 meters. Marcus checked his tactical display. Theron should be in position in 10 minutes. They moved in silence until Marcus signaled a stop. Through a ventilation grate, he could see the main dock floor. Vorten soldiers were positioned strategically, and in the center, tied to a support beam, was Sienna. Even from this distance, Marcus could see she'd been crying but remained defiant. "That's my girl," Navina breathed. "Brave, like her father." Marcus noted the Vorten positions, counting numbers, identifying weak points, 18 hostiles for guard rotations, and Dravik himself at 3 o'clock. When Theron makes his entrance, most will move to engage. That's our window. "What about those 3? Navina indicated guards who remained near Sienna. "That's where we get creative." Marcus pulled out a small device. EMP grenade. Kills their shields and comes for 30 seconds. More than enough time. Theron's distraction was spectacular, a full frontal assault that drew the Vortens like moths to flame. Marcus triggered the EMP, dropped through the grate, and moved with lethal precision. The first guard went down to a nerve strike, the second to a disruptor blast. The third turned just as Navina appeared behind him, executing a perfect takedown that reminded Marcus she was more than just a diplomat. "Mother." Sienna cried as Navina cut her bonds. "She baby. We've got you." Plasma fire erupted as their position was discovered. Marcus provided cover while Navina and Sirith moved Sienna toward the extraction point. But Dravik Cross himself blocked their path, wielding a heavy plasma cannon. "Touching rescue," the enforcer rumbled. Pointless but touching. Marcus stepped between Dravik and Navina. "Let them go. Your issue is with me." "True." Dravik raised the cannon. "Die with dignity, human." The shot came before Marcus could dodge. He braced for impact, but Navina suddenly shoved him aside, taking the blast meant for him. She went down hard, and Marcus's world became red. He moved without thought, closing the distance to Dravik with inhuman speed. The enforcer tried to bring the cannon around, but Marcus was already inside his guard. Years of rage, grief, and protective fury channeled into brutal efficiency. He wasn't just fighting an enemy, he was destroying the thing that had hurt the woman he loved. When it was over, Dravik Cross lay motionless, and Marcus knelt beside Navina. Her armor had absorbed most of the blast, but she was badly hurt, her skin losing its crystalline shimmer. "Why?" Marcus demanded, pulling her into his arms. "Because you saved us twice," Navina gasped. "My turn." Her hand found his face. "Besides can't let you die before telling you I love you." "Don't you dare," Marcus choked. "Don't you dare say that like it's goodbye." Cirith appeared with medical supplies, and Theron's team secured the area. As they rushed Navina to the embassy medical facility, Marcus held her hand the entire way, refusing to let go even when the healers tried to work. "I love you too," he whispered. "So you have to survive this. You hear me?" "That's an order, Ambassador." Navina's eyes fluttered open briefly, and she smiled. "Since when, do I take orders, from you?" "Since I realized I can't live without you." The healers worked through the night. Marcus refused to leave, sitting vigil outside Navina's chamber, while Sienna curled against his side. Both of them waiting, hoping, praying to whatever gods might listen. When dawn broke, a healer finally emerged. "She'll recover fully. The ambassador is strong, and she had excellent reason to fight." Marcus's legs nearly gave out with relief. Sienna hugged him tight, and he held her back. This child who had brought him back to life when he'd been ready to die. "Can we see her?" Sienna asked. "She's asking for you both." They entered together. Navina lay propped up in bed, still pale but with her crystalline skin beginning to shimmer again. Her eyes found Marcus, and her expression held everything words couldn't convey. "You stayed," she said. "Where else would I be?" Marcus sat on the bed's edge, taking her hand. "You scared the hell out of me." "Good. Now you know how I felt watching you fight Dravik." Navina squeezed his hand. "I meant what I said, Marcus. I love you. Consequences, politics, species, differences, none of it matters compared to that." Sienna climbed onto the bed carefully, snuggling between them. "Does this mean Marcus is staying forever?" Marcus and Navina looked at each other, and in that moment something was decided without words. "Yeah, kid," Marcus said softly. "I think it does." A new dawn, the scandal broke 3 days after Navina recovered. Someone likely a Vorton sympathizer within the embassy, staff leaked footage of Marcus and Navina kissing in the gardens, along with detailed reports of his staying in her chambers. Within hours, it was broadcast across sovereignty space and beyond. The reaction was immediate and explosive. The Sovereignty High Council called for an emergency session. Earth's provisional government, suddenly interested in a soldier they'd declared dead, issued demands for Marcus's extradition, and a cross-station helix. Opinion divided sharply between those who found the cross-species relationship romantic and those who considered it. Scandalous Navina's office, watching the news feeds with grim acceptance. "I should leave. This is destroying your career." "Not a chance," Navina said from her desk, where she was composing responses to the flood of official communications. Despite still recovering from her injuries, she refused to show weakness. "We knew this would happen eventually. I won't apologize for loving you. The council is demanding you renounce me or face recall to the homeworld. Then they'll be disappointed." Navina stood, moving to where Marcus sat. She wore formal robes that signaled her diplomatic status, but her eyes held the same warmth they did when they were alone. "I've spent 20 years serving the sovereignty, sacrificing personal desires for political necessity. I won't sacrifice you." Marcus pulled her onto his lap carefully, mindful of her healing wounds. "You could lose everything. Your position, your influence, maybe even custody of Sienna. They wouldn't dare take my daughter from me." But uncertainty flickered across Navina's face. "Would they?" The door chimed before Marcus could answer. Commander Theron entered, his expression troubled. "Ambassador, the High Council has issued a formal summons. You're to appear before them in person within 7 days to answer charges of conduct unbecoming a representative of the sovereignty." Navina's jaw tightened. What charges specifically? Engaging in inappropriate relations with a member of a lesser species, compromising diplomatic objectivity, and bringing scandal to the sovereignty's reputation. Theron's voice made clear what he thought of those charges. They're giving you a choice. Renounce Captain Webb publicly and accept probation, or resign your ambassadorship and face exile. Exile. Marcus stood, fury building. For falling in love? Our laws regarding cross-species relationships are ... complex, Theron explained. Technically not forbidden, but strongly discouraged among the diplomatic corps. The Council is using the scandal as leverage to remove an ambassador who's become too independent for their liking. Navina's expression hardened with understanding. This isn't about Marcus at all. It's about my opposition to the trade agreements with the Vorden cartel. They've wanted me out for months. Your relationship gave them the perfect excuse, Theron confirmed. Marcus felt rage building. The same helpless fury he'd felt watching his squad die on Centauri while politicians made expedient choices. There has to be something we can do. There is, Navina said quietly. I choose exile. I choose you, no. Marcus grabbed her shoulders. You can't give up everything you've built because of me. Your position, your work hit matters. You save lives through diplomacy. What good is saving lives if I can't live my own? Navina cupped his face. Marcus, for 20 years I've been the perfect ambassador, the devoted mother, the dutiful servant of the state. I've negotiated treaties, prevented wars, and sacrificed my own happiness repeatedly. I won't sacrifice you. I won't sacrifice us. Mother? Sienna appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide with tears. Are they really going to send us away? Navina knelt before her daughter, wincing slightly. Would that be so terrible? We could find somewhere new, just the three of us. Build a different life. But I like being a princess, Sienna said with heartbreaking honesty. And you like being an ambassador. You help people, Mother. Marcus makes you happy, but your work makes you proud. The simple truth from a child cut through everything. Marcus saw Navina's resolve waver, saw the conflict playing across her features. She didn't want to choose between her calling and her heart. There might be another option, Marcus said slowly, an idea forming. Navina, you once mentioned that Azurian intelligence has files on Centauri, files that prove what really happened there. Navina stood, understanding, dawning. You want to clear your name? It's more than that. Those files prove that Earth's military command knowingly sent my squad into a trap to protect corporate interests. They court-martialed me to hide their own corruption. Marcus's mind raced. If that information goes public, Earth's provisional government loses all credibility. They'd have no leverage to demand my extradition. And if you're not a fugitive, Theron added, catching on, you're simply a civilian in a relationship with an ambassador. Scandalous, perhaps, but not grounds for exile. But the Sovereignty Council would still, Navina started. Would they? Marcus interrupted. If this becomes a story about forbidden love across species barriers, public opinion will matter. And from what I've seen on the news feeds, public opinion is split. Many people find this romantic. Many find it disgusting, Navina countered. But all of them are talking about it, Marcus pressed. What if we control the narrative? Show them not just that we love each other, but why our relationship represents something bigger: cooperation between species, the evolution of old prejudices, hope for a more integrated galaxy. Avina's eyes lit up with the same strategic intelligence that made her a masterful diplomat. A public campaign. Turn scandal into a movement for change. While simultaneously revealing the corruption that destroyed my career, Marcus added, Earth's government won't be able to touch me. And the Sovereignty Council will face pressure to modernize their own policies. Is risky, Theron warned. You'll be exposing yourself to scrutiny from every corner of known space. I've been hiding for 5 years, Marcus said. I'm tired of it. Tired of running? Tired of shame for crimes I didn't commit? Tired of letting corrupt systems control my life? You've given me something worth fighting for again. Let me fight for us. Navina looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. All right, we do this together. She turned to Theron. I'll need secure access to the Intelligence Directorate's classified archives. And contact media representatives who've been sympathetic to progressive causes. And I'll need to record a testimony, Marcus added. Everything that happened on Centauri, every detail I've kept buried for 5 years. Over the next week, they orchestrated their counterattack with military precision. Marcus recorded hours of testimony about Centauri, explaining how his squad had been sent to destroy a research facility that supposedly housed weapons research, how they'd discovered instead it was a civilian medical center, how his commanding officer had ordered them to complete the mission, anyway to satisfy corporate backers who wanted the facility eliminated, how Marcus had refused, evacuated as many civilians as possible, and been court-martialed for disobedience when he reported the truth, how his entire squad had been killed in suspicious training accidents shortly after to silence potential witnesses. Navina obtained the classified files that corroborated every word. Surveillance footage, communications logs, financial records linking military brass to corporate interests, evidence that Earth's government had buried along with Marcus's reputation. They released everything simultaneously. The testimony, the files, and a joint statement from Marcus and Navina about their relationship and what it represented. Within hours, it exploded across every major news network in human and alien space. The response was overwhelming. Human citizens, already distrustful of their provisional government after years of corruption scandals, erupted in outrage. Protests filled Earth's major cities demanding justice for Marcus and his squad. Other species, touched by the story of forbidden love and sacrifice, rallied in support. The Sovereignty High Council found itself facing unprecedented pressure to modernize policies that suddenly seemed antiquated compared to the romantic narrative capturing public imagination. Street demonstrations on the Sovereignty homeworld featured protesters carrying images of Marcus and Navina, demanding recognition of cross-species relationships. 3 days before, Navina's scheduled appearance before the council, Earth's provisional government collapsed under the weight of the revelations. An emergency session of the Terran Assembly issued a formal apology to Marcus, expunged his court-martial, and posthumously decorated his fallen squad members. 2 days later, the Sovereignty High Council shocked observers by announcing a formal review of relationship policies within the diplomatic corps, while stopping short of full acceptance, acknowledged that regulations needed to reflect the galaxy's changing realities. On the day Navina was supposed to answer charges, she instead attended a ceremony at the Sovereignty Embassy, where Marcus officially accepted the position of Sienna's bodyguard and guardianly recognized throughout Sovereignty space. "How does it feel?" Navina asked afterward, standing with Marcus on the embassy balcony as Sienna played in the gardens below, "to be respectable again?"